Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. We started the new sutta last time, and which is called Tuvataka Sutta, translated as quickly. So as you all can see, it is available in the Kuddaka Nikaya. One interesting book of Kuddaka Nikaya is called Sutta Nipata, where it is quite popular for its authenticity and again representing the early Buddhist teaching. And if I just recall about the background to this sutta, at one occasion Buddha was living at Kapilavattu with 500 arahants, and at that time there was a huge gathering of devas and even brahmas coming from many thousands of worlds. And this is particularly mentioned that for a particular Buddha this happens only once. So this kind of a conglomeration, this many uncountable number of gathering of the devas, celestial beings. So the information of this particular gathering, their names are fairly explained in the Mahasamaya Sutta. So at that occasion Buddha wants to explain the Dhamma to this huge gathering, to these celestial beings, and there he recognized certain deities, these celestial beings who are more into the saddha, to the faith, and for them to realize, to understand the Dhamma, so he is explaining this Tuvataka Sutta. And here another interesting phenomena is that Buddha creates another mind-made Buddha, and he is the one asking questions. So this is a kind of a technique that we all know, that sometimes it is quite necessary to ask the right question at the right time, and that also is a special skill. And then only the preacher, the one who is explaining, can give the proper answer at the right time, and then the audience may get the good understanding, a realization. So therefore, knowing the importance of that, Buddha has created a mind-made Buddha, a created Buddha, and so through him Buddha is asking the question, because he knows what is the necessity at that time. So accordingly he is asking the question, and the real Buddha is answering the question. So as we last time discussed, so the question asked, Puccami tang adicca bandung vivekang santi padanja mahesi katan disva nibbati bhikkhu anupadiyano lokasmin kinchi. So he is asking, so you are the one who is more completely free from the defilements, you are the kingsman of the sun, and you are more into the viveka, to the seclusion, and you are completely serene. And so I am asking the great Rishi, how a bhikkhu, a one who is seen the danger of the samsara, and how he would attain the nibbana, but seeing what he is attaining the nibbana without clinging to anything in the world. So then the answer was quite profound, and it explains through several verses, and we discussed a couple of them last week. Mulam papancha sankhaya manta asmiti sabbang uparunde yakachi tanha ajjattang tasang vinaya sada sato sikke. So this is the first verse. Very profound. So one has to abandon papancha sanya sankha because it is and seeing its root. So what is its root? Asmiti, I am. very basic fundamental sense of I am existing, here I am. So this very basic fundamental existential sense of I is something that one has to recognize through wisdom, and that has to be abandoned. That is one section. And then yakachi tanha ajjattang tasang vinaya sada sato sikkhi. And there may be various different forms of craving arising in the mind, inside the mind, and one has to recognize them through continuous mindfulness. And to restrain these desires, one has to restrain. To abandon these desires, one has to restrain. And then Buddha further elaborate, yankinchi dhamma abhinya ajjattang atavapi pahidda natena thanang kubbeta nahisa nibbhuti satang vutta. So whatever the understanding one might have, some kind of a knowledge one is having, and it could be internal or external, that means related to the internal world or the external world. Natena thanang kubbeta nahi sa nibbhuti satang vutta. One should not be obstinate on that account. So one should not feel proud about it, about that knowledge. And the peaceful Rishi, the Buddha, doesn't call it as a quenching. Because sometimes we learn a lot, maybe about the outside world, maybe about the inside world. So it is limited to the mere knowledge, very much like a superficial knowledge, without much of a realization. So the Buddha doesn't say that as the kind of a fine or complete realization, because it is still superficial, because people are very much fond of learning, very much fond of this intellectualizing. So they keep learning many information, keep gathering, keep memorizing, keep contemplating. It has certain purpose. This is what we call the bahusutta bhava, or the learnedness. But that alone is not enough. So that alone is not the aim of the Dhamma. So the Buddha doesn't say it is as the quenching, it as the Nibbana. And then next, we can go further now. Seyyo na tena manyaya nichayyo athavapi sarikku putto aneka rupehi natu manang vikappayang titte. Now here, actually in this sutta, there are very subtle defilements Buddha is trying to address. One of them is called the mana. Sayyamana, Sadisamana, Heenamana. So we discussed during the Yavakalapi Sutta also, mana, the conceit. The conceit is one of the very subtle area where we tend to think. So we have the notion of an individual. I am someone, I am a person, I am a male, I am a female. So likewise we have this personality. We personify the whole experience. And as a result of that, there is a tendency to compare myself with another person. So it happens naturally because I am a person, I am an individual. How am I doing compared to another person? So that's a very obvious tendency in the mind. We measure ourselves, we compare ourselves. By comparison, we might say, okay, I am better than him, I am equal to him, or I am sort of lower than him. So these are the three main categories of conceit. Either I am better, either I am equal, or I am not that better. So I am below than him. So this is the typical comparison. And it is not only related to the individuals, it will naturally happen with compared to our possessions. Okay, if you are having a car, you may tend to compare it with another car, someone else's car. because this is your car, this is my car, and I love that, I appreciate that, I really really want to keep it at first. So natural tendency is to compare that with someone else's car, or another new car. So likewise, whenever we objectify things, that also another area we naturally tend to measure, naturally tend to compare. So one area is in the animate things, where I myself as we recognize as an individual. So that individual how is doing compared to another individual. That is one area. Or my son with compared to someone else's son. My wife, my husband, my spouse compared to another spouse, someone else's spouse. So likewise, so we have certain kind of attachment to my people, my children, my spouse. So how they are doing in compared to the others. So that is one area. The other thing is that we measure particularly our own possessions. Maybe our car, maybe our house, and maybe our profession. So likewise, so many areas are there for us to measure. It happens naturally. So when we objectify, the mind tends to compare it with someone else's or another object. So this measurement, this measuring capacity, this comparing capacity is a kind of a tendency available in the mind. So in order to abandon this tendency, we have to practice a lot. And as we know that this the conceit I am, asmimana, is a subtle defilement, and it only will be abandoned when one becomes fully enlightened as an arahant. Till that it will remain as a very subtle defilement. So in Kanda Sangyutta, one sutta called Khemaka Sutta, there Venerable Khemaka, being a non-returner, so he particularly mentioned, even for the one who has abandoned the 5 lower fetters, Orambhangya Sangyojana, even for him there is subtle sense of I am. Asmiti mano, asmiti chando, asmiti anusayo. A sense of conceit, I am, sense of a desire as I am, and latent tendency as I am. So this is so subtle, and so therefore it is kind of an ongoing, kind of a latent type of a defilement. So here Buddha particularly mentioned Seyyo natena manyaya nichayyo athavapi sarikku. So one now is trying based on that knowledge, one should not compare oneself with another person, and keeping either oneself as better, equal or low. So it not only with respect to the knowledge, we can apply it to so many other areas, about our wealth, about our appearance, about our country, about so many things are there. We already discussed them while we were discussing the Yavakalapi Sutta. So many different occasions, so many different situations are there. So when we do this comparison, and so Buddha is mentioning here, Putto aneka rupehi na tumanang natumanang vikappayang titte. So being affected in various ways, one should not persist in positioning oneself. So we continuously position ourselves. We compare ourselves and then position. Okay, I am better. So we are keeping our position as a higher level. So I am equal. So I am keeping myself in an equal position. Or we are keeping ourselves at a lower position. We compare and then position ourselves. So this is a very, very tricky process. So are we able to recognize it happening within the mind? So that is the thing. So particularly the mind has a tendency to compare, to measure. Doing that, we position ourselves, okay, I am better, I am equal, I am low. So one has to recognize that tendency and should not persist on that, should not encourage that sort of a tendency in the mind. So as I mentioned in another occasion, so this practice is not actually meant for a one who is just beginning, because it is very difficult. Because recognizing this measurement is not that easy. Just understanding this comparison going on in the mind is not that easy. The sense of I am is always present. So when it is always present, there's a tendency to compare with another individual, and that tendency to recognize, to understand through wisdom is not that easy. So therefore Buddha sometimes highlighted the state of signlessness or signless state as one such possibility that one can trace it. So if you are familiar with signless state, keeping the mind in animitta, so then there's a fairly pure state of mind, less crowded, and the mind is fairly empty, very clear, fairly pure, and the mind is fairly familiar to that state. So if that is possible, then you may have the capacity to recognize this comparison, how the conceit is arising in the mind. Typically it is not that easy because mind is crowded, mind is heavy. Already I am someone, I am an individual, I am in a struggle to maintain my dignity, maintain my position. I am in a struggle to defeat another person. So I am in a struggle to uplift myself, show off myself. So this is the mundane way of our activity. So we are doing that, constantly we are in that. So while in that, it's very difficult to understand this. So I am being driven by the conceit. So we are already consumed by conceit. We are already a victim of the conceit. On such occasion, we are not in a position to understand the workings of the conceit. So one has to practice a lot, at least to be free from conceit for a while. Now that is quite helpful in the Satipatthana Sutta. As one practice fairly, one may be able to achieve something called a non-grasping state of the mind. So that there is no grasping now. Grasping is somewhat temporarily subsided. So the mind is not grasping now. So mind has certain amount of a lightness, fair amount of clarity, and mind is in a restful state. So one has to recognize these qualities of the mind. Okay, it is completely free from defilements, completely free from any grasping, completely free from any attachment. There is no heaviness, instead there is a lightness, fair spaciousness in the mind. So this state has to be recognized and also has to be appreciated. So if one is dwelling in such kind of a signless state, empty state, spacious state, then that's a good sign that we have a little bit of capacity to recognize this measurement, the comparison, the tendency to conceit. Because we have experienced, even for a short time, we have experienced a mind which is not grasping, a mind which is not highlighting oneself as an individual, a mind which is fairly restful, a mind which is free from any stress, mind which is quite relaxed. So we have experienced that. So even without experiencing that, even without sort of internalizing such state, even for a temporary time, temporary period, it's very difficult for one to realize these subtle defilements like conceit, I am, and this ongoing comparison, because we are a victim of that process, continuously in that process. We feel like an individual, and the comparison is an ongoing trait. So therefore the Buddha's advice to Venerable Rahula, available in the Sutta Nipata Rahula Sutta, Animittancha bhavehi mananusaya mujjaha. So you better develop the animitta, the signless state, using which you can now trace conceit and you can now abandon that. So that is the advice Buddha has given to Venerable Rahula. It's quite a valid advice, and we also can try to maintain a mind which is free from signs, free from any kind of an attachment, any grasping, fairly spacious, fairly lighter. In one sense it is quite simple, but fairly deep from the wisdom. And such a state of a mind is a very rich area, a capable area, a capable mind state for us to recognize subtle defilements. And so if we move to the next verse, Majjhe yata samuddassa umino jayate tito hoti. Okay, before that, ajjatta me vupasame na anyato bhikkhu santi me seyya. Ajjattang upasantassa natti atta kuto niratta. So it is internally that he should achieve peace. A bhikkhu should not seek peace through another. For one who is at peace within himself, there is nothing taken up, much less rejected. So if we come to this verse, Ajjattang upasami na anyato bhikkhu santi me seyya. Now when someone has achieved that calmness, that relaxation, that lightness, that non-grasping state, so that means internally that he has achieved something, he has touched that state. Na anyato bhikkhu santi me seyya. Now he is not looking for further purification using some say impure type of methods, and he is not seeking peace through some other means. So he understood the path now. He has achieved he has seen the light, he has seen the kind of the path, he has entered the path. Now he is not looking for various other means, because he understood, okay, this is the path. He is quite confirm about it. He is quite sure about it. So far he was not. So that's why that he was looking for him, looking for this, looking for that, going after that teacher, this teacher. So likewise he was not sure about the path. But when someone has arrived that internal peace, calmness, relaxation, complete letting go, complete non-grasping, even though he can't maintain that continuously, he at least touched that temporarily, at least experienced that temporarily, at least realized that temporarily. So that's a good thing. That is where one become fairly affirmed, confirmed, okay, this is possible. I can achieve it. When these conditions are fulfilled, I can again achieve that. So likewise, he is becoming quite sure about the path. He is now quite happy about the meditation technique. And now he doesn't need to go after other techniques. He doesn't need to listen to various other teachers, because he understood, okay, now the path is available. I myself have dedicated myself to this particular practice, and I did that wholeheartedly. Now I have some kind of a tangible result. I am experiencing that. So now, apart from the Buddha, apart from the Dhamma, apart from the Sangha, he is not going for anything else. He is not searching purity using other methods. Maybe astrology, maybe different another belief, or any other kind of whatever mystics. He is now not going for these kind of different type of methods, because he understood, okay, this is the path, so I have achieved that, even though I am not yet fulfilled. So he is quite sure about his achievement, he is happy about it, and it happens again and again. At first it might not be sort of traceable, but as it happens again and again, as a result of the practice, one becomes fairly sure about it. So this is something very important to understand, because sometimes we, as we are learning, as we are listening, so our mind get filled with so many alternatives, so many different kinds of views. If we are not practicing, then we become in a kind of a puzzle, in a perplexity. So what is the correct path? Who is the teacher? What is the method? So likewise, a big confusion is there in the mind. But when someone has selected a teacher and practiced a particular method and achieved some form of clarity of the mind, complete purity of the mind, non-grasping state of the mind, spaciousness of the mind, grounding of the mind, so all that indicates that there is something has happened, and again it is repeatable. So with time one become confident about it. At first it appear like a kind of a random event, but later one become fairly familiar with it. Okay, and now I can continue this sort of a practice. I am practicing, say, Anapanasati, or I am practicing elements meditation. I am practicing, say, Chittanupassana. And once I apply this sort of a methodology again, so mind become completely released. Again I achieve that freedom. So likewise one become quite sure about the path, and then he is not anymore going to look after searching another teacher. So Buddha is the teacher. So he is quite sure about it, and he has no wavering in the mind. And he knows, okay, Dhamma is the path. So Dhamma has well explained. I now further have to practice it. It's a matter of my dedication, it's a matter of my sort of understanding, it's a matter of time, how to abandon the remaining defilements. So he is becoming more and more confident about the path. So therefore he is not looking after another teacher or any other method now, because he has found the path. Actually this is explained in another sutta called Kosambya Sutta as one of the qualities of the Sotapanna, a stream winner. When one becomes a stream winner, a sure stream winner, so he do this comparison, he do this sort of reflection. So this achievement, this kind of a state of mind, is it mentioned in another religion? Is it mentioned in another sect? Is it mentioned by another teacher, another belief system? And when he is doing such kind of a reflection, he gets the answer, okay, no, it is not there. So this kind of a reflection, or this kind of a achievement, this kind of a peace, this kind of a non-grasping state of mind, this sort of a very sublime state is not well explained in another teaching. Apart from the Buddha, apart from the Savaka, follower of the Buddha, so no one is mentioning this sort of a very deep, very calm, very relaxed and ungrasping state apart from the Buddha or his follower, one of his followers. So he is quite sure about it. So this is one reflection that Buddha mentioned in the Kosambya Sutta, that when one becomes a stream winner, he may be kind of understanding where he is. He might do this sort of a reflection, and he becomes quite sure about the path. Now he has no perplexity. There is no doubt. And as a result of that, now he can continue the path without much of a trouble, without much of a hesitation. And even if we don't meet further Kalyana Mitta, further assistance from a Kalyana Mitta, still he is capable of achieving the full enlightenment. In case he meet further Kalyana Mittas and if he further associate Dhamma, his path become smooth and quick. But even if that does not happen, still his achievement, full enlightenment is very much like assured. So that is mentioned even in the within 7 lifespans, he will achieve the full enlightenment. So likewise, it's a fairly strong area that we are discussing. So when one has become fully aware or fully experiencing that sort of a calm, relaxed, non-grasping state without eye-making, mind-making, even for a short time, so that's a kind of a considerable state of mind. And Ajjattang upasantassa natti atta kuto niratta. Now this Bhikkhu Bodhi has translated as for one who is at peace within himself, there is nothing taken up, much less is rejected. So that is how he translated that. Nothing taken up. So that means he is not driven by the desire. He is not attracted to anything. He is not grasping anything. On the other hand, much less rejected. That means driven by the aversion, ill will, he is not rejecting anything. So the mind is in a full equilibrium where there is no rejection, there is no attraction. So mind is in a full balance. On the other hand, in the Sinhala translation, it is mentioned as, so there is no this sort of atta, kind of a self, and there is no rejection of a self. Or sometimes it is translated as there is no Uchcheda Ditti or the eternalism related Ditti, Sāsvata Ditti. So one has abandoned the Sāsvata Ditti as well as the Uchcheda Ditti. So different meanings are given by different translations. Anyway, Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation also giving a good understanding where mind is in a good balance. There is no rejection motivated by any ill will, and again there is no attraction motivated by any desire. So these are very interesting verses and fairly deep. I think that's a good point for us to stop, and probably we'll take the next verse next week. And now I open the session for questions.
So if somebody have any questions or anybody have any questions, please raise your hands and then we can give the appropriate. I can't see anybody has raised their hands, but I have a question, so maybe I'll go and maybe those will follow later. In this sutta, we talk about the empty space, and time to time, I think there are individuals who have sort of shared that they have experienced it. And my question for you would be, when we have experienced time to time, and these small gaps or small spaces of the emptiness, to expand it to a longer period, is it just the meditation itself to be done? Can you talk about that? Thank you.
Yeah. So meditation is the primary thing, but apart from that, actually we have to look after the mind, our way of life, our livelihood really matters. Now, say for example, you are a dedicated practitioner, but during the day, so how am I maintaining myself? Am I into too much talking? Am I into too much quarreling with some others? Am I into say seeing the movies, too much into the news, or am I too much into the thinking? Now all these things really matter, because what we are talking here is a complete calmness of the mind, relaxation of the mind, quenching of the mind. But during the day, that means outside that period, how are we maintaining our livelihood? So that is where we have to give certain support during the day to our this sort of an understanding. During the day, if we are not looking after the mind, if we are not sort of careful about our well-being, then that can become a hindrance to the continuation or the growth of this practice. Because during the day we have a lot of arguments, we have a lot of burdens, and we are more into the papancha, conceptual proliferation. I am keep on thinking and I become stressed. Then again, after coming back to the sitting session or the walking session, there's a huge burden to work with, because I couldn't look after the mind. I couldn't maintain a kind of a conducive environment in the mind which is more helpful for this practice. So that is why maintaining of the mindfulness throughout the day, and to understand to whom to associate, to understand where to go and where not to go, to understand what are the tasks to undertake and what are the tasks not to undertake. So likewise we have to be fairly careful in this area. So that's why in the Sampajanya Buddha, in the commentary, it is mentioned Sattaka Sampajanya, Sappaya Sampajanya, Gochara Sampajanya, Asammoha Sampajanya, Sattaka Sampajanya. Whenever we do some kind of a task, so one has to have a kind of a reflection. Is it really meaningful? Is it really necessary? So such kind of a reflection will help us to engage only with an important essential task. That is one area, Sattaka Sampajanya. Then Sappaya Sampajanya. Is it really suitable for me? Is it really what's the purpose of this task? So you do another kind of a reflection. Is it purposeful? It is necessary. So likewise, before we engage with some kind of an activity, so the commentary mentioned, okay, in this Sappaya Sampajanya, so one do a kind of a quick reflection to understand the purpose of it. Because sometimes we being motivated by different desires to perform different tasks. So either in the beginning, either in the middle, or at the end of the task, so one has to do this reflection. So in the Ambalattika Rahulovada Sutta, Buddha mentioned particularly Paccavekkitva Kayana Kammang Kātabba. Paccavekkitva Vachasaya Kammang Kātabba. Paccavekkitva Manasa Kammang Kātabba. So by doing continuous reflection, one has to do the bodily activities, verbal activities, and the mental activities. And then the Gochara Sampajanya. So whenever we are doing a particular task, how well am I keep it aligned with the practice, keep it aligned with the Satipatthana. Say I am just sweeping the floor. Can I sweep the floor while being in the Kayanupassana level? Just recognizing how the broom or whatever rake is touching the hand, and I am feeling the tightness, I am feeling the hardness, I am feeling the sound, whatever. So likewise I am trying to ground myself while I am doing in that particular task, and maybe practicing sort of a mindfulness, maintaining mindfulness. Or am I able to recognize the feelings while I am conducting that task? Or am I able to look at the mind? Can I practice Chittanupassana while I am engaged with that task? So likewise, one is now trying to insert one's practice wherever possible, as much as possible, because he is not forgotten about the practice. Even though he has a lot of tasks, lot of duties, again and again he has to come back to the practice, and even those duties he is now trying to achieve while giving some kind of input to the practice. At least time to time one has to ground oneself, become mindful, even though he is engaged with other activities. And then asammoha sampajanya, so where he is giving some importance to the understanding, to the insight. Whenever there are defilements, he is using those insights to abandon those whatever the defilements. And whenever one is achieving a particular task, can I insert certain amount of insight into it? So likewise, he is now trying to engage with other activities also with some wisdom. I am not saying that one has to completely be in a completely be free from the conventional level, because we are dealing with various mundane activities. If you are working on an office or any other thing, so you may have to deal with fair amount of conventional stuff, conventional realities that we need to understand, but not allowing ourselves to completely consumed by that, completely overwhelmed by that. At least time to time, how well can we ground ourselves? So that is somewhere I would like to say as the asammoha sampajanya. So likewise, if we are maintaining our daily life in such a conducive way, then as Geshan asked, that relaxed state, that calm state, non-grasping state, spacious state of the mind is fairly looked after, fairly given some importance, and the progress may be smooth and steady.
Thank you, Bhante. Such a profound answer. I really appreciate. I think with the recent holidays period, I have experienced, traveling and with all the holiday season, engaging with others. The mind has sort of got distorted per se, and it is very stressful sometimes to get back to where I was. So I think just trying to sort of do the same thing. That's the reason why I was asking the question, and it is this teaching itself is fantastic for the moment. Thank you.
Okay.
I think I see Nissarana has raised their hand, so I'll ask to unmute and ask the questions.
Bhante?
Yeah.
I have a question regarding Dhamma. So we talk about in this I making, my making. So with it says Tanha Jayati, so forth. So is the greed part of I making, my making, and what's the relationship between that and so that's the first part.
Oh, wait. So we'll answer that part first.
Okay, no worries.
So your question is, in the I making and mind making, is greed part of it, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is, because mind making is driven by greed. It is mind. Okay, so as the sense of mind happens because of the greed. So there is a desire, there is a inside sort of thirst. Driven by that thirst, I am attracted to something. So now I feel it is mine. So the mind making is where the possessive attribute, possessive quality of the mind. So this mind making is driven by greed, craving.
Okay, Bhante. So if that Then the second part of that question was, if greed was part of I and my making, so then they're intelligible. So would with Margapala, would greed be ever only be as, like say I'm talking, I don't know, I say zero. Would ever greed be zero only for Arhat, or would it start getting lesser and lesser with the Margapala, let's say Sovan, Sakudagami? So how does that sort of part play with the yogi going forward?
Yeah. Now, as per the Dhamma, now you know that these things are explained with the 10 fetters. So when one becomes a Sotapanna, so still he is having the greed and even the ill will. So those are not abandoned. What he has abandoned is that gross misunderstanding that this body has a self, these feelings has a self, different perceptions has a self, different thoughts has a self, and the sense interaction with the outside world through the eye with the sight, through the ears with the sounds, smells, taste, tangibles, thoughts. So this sense experience, that knowing part, has a self. So that is the gross experience that he has abandoned. Gross misunderstanding, the Sakkaya Ditthi, the personality view, he has abandoned when one becomes a Sotapanna. But still he has greed, hatred. The desires are still operating. According to Dhamma, those desires basically doesn't have the capacity to commit a kind of a crime which take him to the hell realm. So that means the gravity of the defilements are substantially reduced. He still has defilements, he still has greed and hatred, but the gravity of it is fairly reduced. He may not commit a crime which is having the fruit of taking him to a lower realm. That is one thing. And then one becomes a Sakadagami, so the once returner. So that means he has further reduced the defilements, further reduced the greed and hatred. So that means, say, just to give just a mundane example. Now, say, as a mundane person, as a unheard person, what we call as a putujjana, a worldling. So say he continuously think about himself, myself, and he has that personality view in a very high level, and continuous eye making, mind making, all that, conceit, I am, all these are available, and as a result of that, he engaged with a fair amount of anger, he engaged with sensual desires, so his mind is in a fairly corrupted level. And when one becomes a Sotapanna, so that has fairly reduced. Now he has an understanding, okay, there is no self here, but still the defilements are still operative in the mind. So he being driven by some defilements, but he may not commit a kind of a crime which is really heinous. And another quality attributed to him, a Sotapanna, is that even when he commit some kind of a mistake, some kind of an offense, he is not hiding it. He want to quickly amend it. He expose it to a teacher, he expose it to another wise person, and he wants to quickly amend it. He is not trying to hide it. That is another quality attributed to a Sotapanna. And then one becomes a Sakadagami. It is mentioned that his, particularly the greed and hatred, are further diluted, further reduced. Now that means his mind is less burned by lust, less burned by anger. Still the anger and lust may be arising, but he is not keeping it for a long time, because he understands the sort of the heaviness, he understands the burning nature of that. Even though anger and lust still arising, he quickly tries to shed it off. So that is how the Sakadagami is typically explained. And then the anagami is completely free from greed and hatred. Greed and hatred is not there, but this particular greed is still the sensual desire related greed is not there with him. Now non-return anagami, but still he has very subtle desire to the what we call the arupa realms, arupa experience, very very subtle psychological say immaterial jhanic experience it still may have. It's called ruparaga, aruparaga, mana, uddacca, avijja. Now those are the 5 upper fetters still remaining in his mind. Those are very very subtle, and that is why even the non-returner is again born in a material realm. He may not come back to the sensual realm, to the say the human realm, to the panchakama, to the 5 typical sight, sound, smells, taste, tangibles, that kind of a gross kind of a sensual desire related realm. He may not come back, but still his mind has certain amount of a greed towards this fine material experience. So he may born as a Brahma, and he may born to another lifespan. Non-returner means he may not return to this world, to the karma realm, to the sensual realm. So his sensual desires are completely abandoned, even though he has a subtle desire related to the fine material realm. So some jhanic experience or something like that. So he has certain desire. Only the fully enlightened Arahant is free from everything.
Very good, Bhante. Thank you for the very clear answer. Because what I as Christian, the holiday period, what I notice it's I don't know, for the fraction of people like us, there's all these things that happen, like the Boxing Day sales, Christmas sales, New Year. That actually, I think, the level of greed is because we get exposed to so much, the advertisements, buy this, buy that. It actually, and the parties, people, food, it actually increases, I think, even if you're trying to be in the fire. I think that I noticed that greed is very easy to accumulate as we go.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that it's very hard is, I think, because the way I notice is, like, if you, for example, if you allow looking at like something and browsing through even a shopping catalog, what happens is your mind takes you from one to another, says, okay, I probably need that, so it's one of the things that are very hard to, I think, to get detached as we go. I think that's what so that's why I think I related to the question about the greed. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Very clear.
Okay.
All right, thank you for that question. And the next can go to Drake. So.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hello.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bhante, for these wonderful classes and answers to these questions. I was curious if you would please explain a little bit more about, and you mentioned Chitta Anupasana, the mindfulness of the mind after mindfulness of breathing and getting grounded in the body. And could you explain a little bit about what is that practice of mindfulness of the mind in meditation, and then also a little bit about, is there a skillful way of training yourself so that you can stay mindful and have that clear comprehension in order to get better at guarding the mind, or like to learn the ability to have sense restraint?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, say for example, just to give an analogy, now say in the Kayanupassana, if you are practicing mindfulness of breathing, so the practice is we allow the body to naturally breathe, and we, like an outsider, we are capable of looking at in breath, looking at out breath. So I'm not interfering the breathing as much as possible. I allow the body to take care of that, and whatever manifest, I am capable of simply recognizing, it is in breath, it is out breath, now it is becoming longer, now it is becoming shorter. So it is happening whatever the way it wants. I simply recognize it, I simply examine it carefully. And now if I apply the same pattern to the mind, now say different thoughts are happening in the mind. Lustful thoughts are happening, revengeful thoughts are happening, maybe loving kindness thoughts are happening, envious thoughts are happening, all different kinds of thoughts are happening. Can I look at them also like an outsider, like I did to the breath? They are merely thoughts, they doesn't belong to me. And it is coming now, it is arising now, so I have the capacity to look at it. It is a thought of ill will. Now you see it. It is a lustful thought. Now you see it as a mere thought. So this kind of practice, if we are capable of doing, then we can say, okay, I can step into Chittanupassana. Now certain amount of clarity of the mind is available and fair amount of mindfulness is available. And to know these different thoughts properly, we have the clear comprehension that also fairly developed. It is also available. So therefore, typically, Buddha recommend Chittanupassana only when the mind is capable of having such a capacity. That means for a beginner, he doesn't immediately recommend Chittanupassana. He simply say, okay, you develop these necessary skills through Kayanupassana. And once those skills are available, then you can properly handle it. Because the problem is these thoughts are very subtle and you have to look at the mind through the mind. And the tendency to, the probability to get sunk into it, get absorbed to it, get sucked into it is very easy. So, I mean, unlike the breath, these different defilements have the different thoughts have the capacity to quickly take it up, take ourselves into it. We can easily tempted by it. That's why we need to first of all well ground ourselves using another kind of a practice to recognize these kind of skills, to develop these capacities. Then we can do it successfully.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what you said about the way we live our daily life will determine if we have the calm and the pleasure for mindfulness of breathing. And I've definitely been, when I sit, I feel tension, and I can see that I pursue objects of desire. And so when you said that reflection, is this necessary? It's like, if it's just to be interesting, then is that like not the same thing? Like, have you taught yourself to do things that are specifically beneficial to to the Dhamma or the Sangha?
So I didn't really get the question, Drake. So you're asking, doing a kind of a reflection, to a kind of a useful reflection to understand, okay, is it really necessary for me or for the Dhamma to the practice? So doing such kind of a reflection?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Yes. So such reflection may be useful because for the practitioner, so he is now giving a value to the practice, because he is now little inclined towards the practice. Now, even though he is a householder, he has understood the importance of the spiritual practice now. He is giving certain amount of value to that. Now he want to safeguard that. Even though he engage with other activities, he go to a party or he go to a office or he is traveling by train or plane or whatever, but he has some kind of a consideration about his practice. He's careful about his practice. So that is something very important, because we can't simply limit our practice only to the cushion, to whatever that sitting session or walking session, and completely forgetting it during the day. So as we are getting on to the practice, slowly one has to understand the importance of it, and even during the other daily activities have to have little bit of concern about it. As you properly mentioned, is whatever the other activity we are engaged with, we have a little concern. Is it really necessary? Is it really important? Is it really helpful for my practice? Is it something that Buddha has recommended? Now that is where the livelihood, the correct livelihood come to the picture. Now, as you know that Buddha recommended, basically he has asked the householders to abandon 5 types of trades. So what we call the 5 types of illegal or unlawful or sort of unethical kind of trades. Say one is engaged with the selling of animals, selling of meat, selling of weapons, selling of poisons. So likewise, couple of things are there particularly mentioned. So whatever my profession, is it really aligned with the Buddha's ethics, the moral conduct? So this kind of inner reflection sometimes take us to a different level, because if we completely ignore all that and simply money-minded and fully engaged with various other things, it can have an adverse effect and when we are into the practice, because sometimes whenever we are engaged with something harmful, it is harmful to ourselves and to the others. It can give a kind of self pity or sense of what we call there's a beautiful term called psychological I'm kind of a guilt
remorse.
About it, kind of a guilt. Yes, remorse. Yes. So those we better try to avoid. So we shouldn't feel guilty, or we shouldn't allow some sort of remorse because of our daily activities.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you notice remorse, then you can look back, like, because I've kind of just been spending a lot of money traveling, and I'm by myself, and I try and apply the Dhamma, but I don't eat that well, and I have so much tension in my body. So the tension itself seems to indicate that I'm not making good choices. Is that correct?
Definitely yes. Now this is actually this is a kind of a gradual practice. In a way, as we are developing mindfulness and wisdom, it gives us another dimension to our understanding about the way of living. So the wisdom that we are developing, the mindfulness that we are developing, help us to refine our daily way of life, our livelihood in a way. So the wisdom corrects the morality further enhance the wisdom. So the morality and the wisdom have a kind of a very beautiful mutual relationship. This is explained very well in the certain suttas, Sonadanda Sutta and all these different suttas. Buddha very beautifully mentioned. So it is not that we can immediately become perfect in our sila. Rather, as we are growing in the wisdom path, so this wisdom, mindfulness, help us to further refine ourselves, further correct ourselves. And we understand where I still go wrong, where I do mistakes. What are the sort of mismatches or mishaps still I am engaged with? What are the areas I further have to develop? So these kind of areas that I am lacking in, I am slow or lacking in the morality. So you are able to recognize them and slowly keep them aside, slowly abandon them.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Craig, for that question. And next goes to I think earlier Cosmos raised the hand. Do you want to ask a question and then go to Moira?
There was a Swami answer. Actually, I'm sorry, I can't find the option to rename my name in the Zooms. Swami answer.
Okay. So may I know your name?
Could you please explain more on applying insight on day-to-day activities like when being mindfulness, Swami answer, because I personally felt this thing. It is like the applying insight is like a two-way. It's working as two ways. Sometimes we apply whatever insight within us to the works we do, and when doing day-to-day activities, and sometimes it seems like there is some insight pours into us when we do some activities. The thing is, when I was for an example, when I dressing something and when I put my belt and something like that, and that putting my belt and that feeling also gives me how to fine tune more my path on this or something there's some glimpses of that is coming and the thing is that I feel like that's surely telling about some that is so insignificant or something, like dressing a belt, but it somehow gives a message or something about the path and where should I fine tune in my in this practice. And the thing is because that is so irrelevant and insignificant, I tend to subtly refuse that, but and also I have accepted that and did getting whatever the message given by that so insignificant events in my life, but it seems that it is working. So I
got the point. May I know your name?
That's an experience.
Yeah. May I know your name?
I am Sahan Swaminathan. Okay. I'm from Anuradhapura.
Okay. Actually, Sahan, what you said is correct. So it has two sides. So the one side is where we expect to we are supposed to be mindful as much as possible during these activities, and as you said, there are certain activities we feel like they are very irrelevant and they are very we don't need to pay much attention. Say for example, I am just sweeping the floor. It doesn't expect a lot of my brain power to get involved with, but that is an area we have to be fairly mindful, because one thing is when we allow the body to simply do it and we'll allow the mind to wander, and it is the mind's tendency is to engage it with the proliferation, to the prapancha, to become completely unmindful. So these very, very little tasks, ordinary tasks, and where we are what we think as not important. So these tasks, if we have to do with fair amount of mindfulness, then one thing is that we can avoid proliferation, prapancha. That is one thing. Second thing is, if we are capable of inserting our practice into that particular task, it is giving a lot of benefits. Now, as you said, say for example, if you are practicing just the sweeping of a floor, so how the broom is being held, so how that grip being felt, and how as the broom is touching the ground, how that whatever the tension or whatever the tightness being felt. Now all these are very subtle qualities of the elements. So we can do a very good elements meditation while sweeping, because it doesn't want a huge amount of brain capacity for the task to happen, but now we have inserted that meditation into it, insight practice into it, just practicing mindfulness and simply kind of a clear comprehension. Slowly it can kind of unfold with some kind of an insight now, because we allow the mind to settle and we avoid any kind of inner chatter, and we are doing it fairly mindfully. Now that means the necessary factors are there. As we are doing that, probably it can give us an opportunity to develop an insight. So that is one thing. Another thing is, as we simply do that, probably if we are watching the mind, that is another area the insights are possible. That is another thing. Now, as you said, how to insert an insight into a daily activity. Now that is the opposite side, where now, say for example, I am sweeping the floor, but I was unmindful and my mind has engaged with some kind of an inner story and it is keep going, and now it become say angry about someone. Now can I insert an insight into it? Now already I am a practitioner and I have practiced Satipatthana, and I have learned that okay, there is things are impermanent and sort of something like that, and I have certain capacity to establish mindfulness, etc. Now at one occasion when I am understood, okay, when I am aware, okay, now the mind has gone to anger, at that moment I have to quickly apply the brakes of the mindfulness. Now I have to establish mindfulness. Once the mindfulness is established, that means I have certain capacity to abandon the anger using many different techniques. Either you can take your attention back to the task, you can take your attention back to the body, you can directly confront anger, you can understand how anger is arising, how you unknowingly supported that, so you are able to untangle it. So likewise you can apply certain insight into the present defilement which is aroused, and that is where we have the kind of a capacity to use insight, use mindfulness in daily activities whenever we are in trouble. Okay.
Great, thank you for that question. Next goes to Moira. You can unmute and ask the question.
Thank you. Bante, is there enough time for me to ask a question?
Yes.
I went to a meditation retreat with one of the Theros just after Christmas. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that happened was he gave me the Thana Sutta and said that I should be saying those 4 things about I'm subject to aging, I haven't gone beyond aging. I'm subject to disease, I haven't gone beyond disease. I'm subject to death, I have not gone beyond death. Those 3 things seems to be okay with me. Mm-hmm. But the 4th one, everything that I beloved and pleasing to me will change and will be separated from me. Mm-hmm. A lot of attachment, especially to my family and in particular my husband, even as I was saying it, it was coming up during the day. But then at night when I slept, I saw a tree falling on him and he's about to die. Mm-hmm. So I woke up, and then the elements started to present in my body very hugely, like air and heat. And I was very frightened because it was in the middle of the night. I calmed myself down and slept. And then I decided I'm not going to do that practice because it's too much for me. So second night, I didn't do the practice. I just did my normal meditation. Second night, the heat was unbearable. I woke up again, and the waves of heat, even in my digestive system and my skin, was just so hard. So I sat up, and I realized that the fear only came up after the experience. It was like a thought process rather than an actual occurrence when the elements are happening. Mm-hmm. It's like an afterthought. And then I calm myself down saying, this heat is the same as the heat in the sun. Mm-hmm. I'm part of the universe and therefore my body is experiencing this. So calm myself down. Mm-hmm. So now I'm back at home. I did at the interview, talk to the Thero, and he said, if it's too much, just do loving kindness meditation, which I usually do. Mm-hmm. But he said you must do something, bring it to your mind every moment of the day rather than just when you're meditating. Sopatveva,
something like that.
something like that, all the time, chanting throughout the day. It's easier to do it when you're doing a retreat, but harder at home. I'm just wondering that feeling, Thana Sutta, that feeling of the elements. If it comes too hard, is it good to do another practice, like the metta?
Okay, so couple of things. So one thing is that the Supatveva, I mean, may I be well, may others be well, or something like that. So that the metta related practice, continuation of that throughout the day may be good for a person who is with a lot of resentment, a lot of ill will, and he is not yet into the Satipatthana practice, mindfulness and insight practice. For such person, such kind of a motivation is good, to abandon the ill will and to engage the mind with the wholesome mentality. But when one is engaged with Satipatthana practice, slowly he is developing some further insightful qualities. He is developing mindfulness, he is developing insight, and all these are much more profound than this loving kindness related this kind of a mantra. So better you allow the mindfulness qualities to take over. Now you are mindful, now you recognize the thoughts, and it's whenever there is a thought of ill will, you recognize it as a thought of ill will. And even when you recognize the thought of loving kindness, you recognize it as a thought of loving kindness. It is also in condition, it is also arising and passing away, it is also impermanent. So there you are going much deeper. You are penetrating the thought. You are not simply encouraging thinking. Rather you see the conditioned nature of thinking. So you are going far beyond that. So that is the beauty of the Dhamma. That is the beauty of the insight practice. So thinking is a conditioned process, and you recognize its limitations. And now you are more into the non-proliferation. So therefore, I don't recommend the continuation of that thought for you. If you have the capacity to see the thoughts are conditioned phenomena, they have the nature to come and go, arise and pass away. So if you have that capacity, then do that, and then it's a very good productive area for insight practice. So that is one area. The next thing is related to your question that whenever you reflecting, so whatever dear to me is subject to change and passing away. So it is quite helpful in a way to reduce our craving, reduce our attachments, and it's a kind of a reminder to us to reduce our grasping. And as you said, if you are attached to the husband or whatever, and whoever, and time to time this sort of insight, this sort of little bit of wise reflection help us to reduce that grasping. It may have a good impact, and so therefore it is not a bad thing. And if you can't bear it doing in an intense way, time to time you can do that and have a little bit of reduce grasping, because sometimes we are attached to a person so much, we are dependent on that person so much, and in case something happened to him, then it becomes very unbearable. But interesting thing is, the mindfulness practice and vipassana practice slowly develops a kind of a capacity to let go of that attachment. So as you are continuing, the attachment may reduce, and you understand, okay, everything is impermanent and I have no control over things. Even though I have love or respect towards a particular person, he himself doesn't have the capacity to sort of live forever. So these things are completely conditioned, impermanent, and you get that kind of an understanding. So as a result of that, mind has a kind of a very relaxed, non-grasping state. So then, with the support of the insight, you may be able to reduce the grasping.
Okay. Thank you so much, Thero and Saranai.
Okay, Thero and Saranai.
Thank you, Moira, for the question. And with that, Bhante, that was the last question.
Okay.
We can wind up.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the questions, and then we'll wind up the session. And all the merit what we have accumulated, we'll share with all the celestial beings, all the past relatives, and whoever in need of merits. And we share these merits with. We wish these merits help us also to practice Buddha's teaching and attain path fruition nibbana. We'll recite the traditional verses. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya akasattha ca bummattha deva naga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sasanang chirang rakkantu desanang chirang rakkantu mamparang idang vo ñātīnaṃ hotu sukitā huntu ñātayo idang vo ñātīnaṃ hotu sukitā huntu ñātayo idang vo ñātīnaṃ hotu sukitā huntu ñātayo imina punya kammena māmi bāla samāgamo satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiyā idamme punya kammang āsavakkaya vahang hotu sabba dukkha pamuncatu.